Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly edition of the Healing Squad. It's your girl, Claire here, just also known as the Grieving Bitch, just waiting for the rest of the squad to come in. I see Anita's joined.
Oh my God, I'm like in your face. Hi.
Hello.
How are you? I have no glasses because all of them are somewhere in the house.
Hello, ladies.
It's okay. I'm glad to have my day because I can't read anything right now. How are you? How's
Good,
your
how are
week?
you?
I think I'm recovering. It's so interesting that last week we talked about what we did, and I mentioned about my mom, and I knew I was going to have this tea and everything. I had it all planned, and it all fell apart.
Why?
Unexpected. It's been 17 years. Yesterday was the, I don't like doing this whole anniversary, but if we're looking at the technicalities of things, yesterday was 17 years since my mom passed. But like I had gone about my day, like I don't normally know what the day is, what the weather is. I just kind of get up and do my things. And I'm like, oh, it's nice outside, so I'll wear a tank top. Or, oh, it's a little cold, I'll put on a cardigan or whatever. I don't really pay much attention. I don't go looking at, where the world is. I kind of do whatever. And so I didn't even pay attention to what the day was. I didn't plan anything. I just kind of went about my day. But something about the day, I knew that we had a tree that needed to be taken down. It's always sad when these things happen because, if you care about the tree, we've been in our new home for about 4 years. And anyway, I just had this like melancholy feeling, but I didn't talk about it. It's just, we all have that sometimes. We're like, I don't know what mood I'm in. I'm in a mood. I don't know. I don't know. You don't talk about it. So I kept moving on, and my daughter was just like listening to how I was talking, and I didn't, I just kind of go, I don't know. And I was looking at some videos of things that just made me get emotional easier than normal. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And then eventually, like it was earlier in the afternoon, I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized it was the day, and I'm like, and I don't have Salerno cookies. If you
Oh
remember the
no.
talk, it was kind of really important for me. Like I just talked about doing traditions. So anyway, I had a moment where I had said, this is all my own inner dialogue to myself when I realized it, and I was by my, I kind of did one of these moments. In my head, I'm like, I got this whole thing with hashtag Hearts Do Matter, and I had this whole thing about, is she going to send me a heart? Am I going to get something from her in any way? And I don't want to obsess over it. I don't want to, but I hope that I would hear from her that maybe she might give me something. And I wanted to celebrate in some way, but I didn't have the Salerno cookies, and I had the whole event that was going on in our backyard. And as I was writing a post, I just found a picture, and that picture I hadn't looked at it in a long time. I've seen a lot of other ones, and I know them. It's the same ones that I keep putting out there in social media, but this one was a little bit different. She was really young, and I was a baby. I
I saw that one.
I was infant, but it got me, and I just, you know, I haven't gotten that kind of emotional for a long time, and it just the way I had posted what I posted, it just really felt like there's this little jagged, small, almost like a kidney stone, but in your heart, emotionally speaking, and it just kind of like made its way, and I didn't know about it, but then there's this pain that showed up, and people I hear who have had kidney stones that need to pass, it's like, oh, it sounds pretty bad. And that's kind of what I could explain what I was feeling. And I started to get a little emotional. I only had my t-shirt, so I'm just like, wiping my face as I'm trying to write this out. And then later at night, it was 10:45 at night, and this one art piece that captured me some time ago I had ordered, and I wanted to put it in the library. It's a room that we have. I call it the library. We don't have one room. I was going to put it in there, and when it came in, I had just kind of gone through this emotional thing. And my husband handed me this package, and when I saw it, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I started. It was it's an image of a heart. It was an art piece of a heart, and it had these little marks all over it that my daughter says it looks like stitches that are stitching the heart together. It was just really everything had really come together in conversation. And I was reading the fine print, which I had not read when I found this piece, and when I read it out loud, I just broke down. So it was a tough day, but it was really beautiful all at the same time. And, I actually found another way that I would normally enjoy a traditional thing. And I did that today, so that was good for me.
Good.
That's the introduction today. How's everyone doing? I'm going to give it to Mary. I'm
Did
sorry.
you
But
did
that
you
was
did you get the cookies?
I didn't. I didn't. And that's why I think, I felt even though I have other traditions, I was really focused on that. And that's why I think it's important that I would say today, have many, create as
Mhm.
many different traditions. And that forces you to start thinking about your relationships. And I have one. I don't want to take up time today to talk about it, but maybe I'll just type it out or something. But it just involves me, my mother, and Remy Martin chocolate. These are liquor-filled chocolates that are absolutely divine. And I'm not a big drinker. I don't drink a bunch of drinks, but that had a relationship with me, my mom on the way to India when we were going to go visit her family. And she came back, stopped in England, got the duty-free chocolate, and she kept it in her purse. And I got a hold of it, and I had some, and I think I was like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9. I can't remember the age I was. And I slept all the way home. So I was searching for it. Normally, that's one of my other traditions that I find this bar. It's by Gold Ken. It's totally European Swiss chocolate. It's so freaking great. And I had found it once upon a time, and I'm like, I'm always going to have a bite of this for my mom. And someone told me they discontinued it, all whatever. And I found it this morning. So for years I haven't had it, but I found it again. They put it back in the market, or I can't tell you what happened, but it's back. It's out there. And so of course I got myself a couple of bars. So
Good.
that was
Good.
nice. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, next time I will make sure, I just didn't have it with me. I didn't have my Salerno cookies, and it did bum me out. I'm not gonna lie. But the schedule was what it was, and I had to stay home, and I wasn't gonna go out, and I wasn't gonna make it a big stressful thing. I just kind of let my emotions go where it needed to go. The tree fell. We had a moment, and then my tears fell later. Everything was very poetic. It was very poetic.
That sounds
Anyway, but I am looking forward to talking about your topic today. I'm not looking forward to it in a sense. It's really tough, but it's a good topic to talk about because a lot of people go through it.
right. So I want to welcome everyone to the Healing Squad, and just heard from Anita, who had the 17th year anniversary of the death of her mom. And I guess we're a throuple now, and so we have the grieving bitch, who's with us tonight also. And I'm Marianne Matzo, nurse practitioner from the nonprofit Everyone Dies. And our topic tonight, because we all take turns, I wanted to talk about death of our pets. And the reason for me is that we had to put down our dog last week. And I just want to tell you about her because she was my baby. Um, she was 15 and a half years old, an Australian Shepherd, and I used her picture in the post. And I met her 4 years ago. And my husband had been married for 32 years. Dimple had been his dog, but mostly it was his wife's dog, Stacia's dog. And when Stacia was sick, David would take Dimple to the hospital, and Dimple would jump on the bed and snuggle with her mom. And she was really, um, from everything that I've heard, just went everywhere with Stacia, knew all her lady friends. Um, was in love with their daughter, Abby. And when I met David, though, Dimple was really depressed. And she was one of these phenomenally smart animals, like just scary smart. Like he told me once that they were watching a show, one of those animal trainer shows about how to teach your dog not to counter surf. Now, Dimple never counter surfed, but Dimple liked to watch TV. She watched this program and the very next day started counter surfing.
And what's
So
counter surfing? Is that what it is in my
when
head?
they
Is an
when they
animal
jump,
sliding across a counter?
that's
Funny.
that's probably
No,
what
that's
you
what
would
the
do,
flies. It's
Claire.
funny.
But
Yeah, that's
no,
what I would do.
that's what you would do. No, counter surfing is when you leave something on the counter and they jump
Nip
up and
around.
pull it down or whatever they have to do to eat it. So it's called
All right,
counter
so
surfing.
slightly
Like
different, but
You're not surfing
yeah,
around the counter to
just
see
a
what's there
little,
to eat.
just a little bit different, just a
okay.
little bit different. And so I mean, she watched this program and the next day started doing it. Go figure. So when I met her though, God, she was a sad girl. And David would be like, let's take Dimple for a walk, and we'd walk for a block, and then Dimple would sit down. I'd be, like, I'm done. Take me home. I'm not going any further. And you just got this sad feeling from her. And we started taking her around my two girls, and she started perking up because there was, estrogen in the house, I think. And over time, she was leery. Yeah, who's this woman? I know you're not my mom, but who are you? But over time, she started bonding with me, would follow me around. She always, when I'd be writing a podcast, she'd be in the office. And, I'd say, Dimple, I need that in triplicate. Are you ready to take your shorthand? Get your steno pad. And she'd look at me like, you're crazy. But she started running with Dave. She started swimming in the lake. She would get this great smile on her face. And their lifespan is about 11 years. So she lived 3 years longer. And I started her on palliative care because she had hip pain. She had trouble walking. I started managing her meds. I started giving her CBD. What's the care plan here? Adjusted it as we needed to. And she was just the role model for really good palliative care. She just, palliative care, you want to, maximize your quality of life, pain and symptom management, live the best you can as long as you can. And that's what this girl did. And she did really good until that day where everything we put in her mouth, it would just kind of fall out. Like she wasn't able to chew or swallow or even hold it in her mouth. And she'd been in diapers for a year. Can you imagine a dog in diapers for a year? That's how much we loved her. Because I'll tell you, every time she peed in one, I'd say, Dimple, it's 50 cents. But she couldn't hold it anymore. So we took her to the vet, and I called ahead of time and I said, will you come out to the car and euthanize her? And the vet tech said, yes, absolutely.
Wow.
So we get
I
there.
didn't know they can do that they can come to the car to do something like that.
Well, during COVID, they started having to do stuff like that.
Oh, right.
Once,
Okay.
once you kind of break one barrier. Well, the vet comes out and he's like, oh, no, I can carry her. I can take her in the back, but my insurance won't let you come in back too. And I said, I don't want her to die alone. He said, I'll take good care of her. I said, I don't want her. I don't want to give her to you. I want her to die with me. He said, you can go find another vet that will do that. He said, but we all have the same insurance, and our insurance will not let us have people back in our operating area. So I had to give her over. And then Dave comes back and I hear him in the back of the truck. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm putting Dimple back there. And I said, no, bring her to me. I'm holding her until we take her home. She's wrapped in a black garbage bag. And I lost it. I said, get her out of the bag. Get her out of the bag. And he's like trying to unknot it really quick. It's like, get her out of the bag. And he got her out and he gave her to me, and I wrapped her in a blanket and I held her like a baby all the way home. And I was like, what the heck? Why is a vet putting a dog that's been euthanized in a garbage bag?
That's so upsetting. That's so upsetting.
Isn't that so upsetting?
I'm nauseous.
Yeah.
I
They
said,
don't, maybe, I'm not saying that I'm right. Like, this is, that compassion part was not there at all.
like, I think he was worried like she'd let loose her bowel and bladder. Okay, so even if you don't have anything else, layer on the plastic. You don't have to wrap it and knot it.
I
So
just can't even, like,
it
help
was
with
so I took her home, and on the way home we stopped at Sonic. I don't know, do you guys have Sonic out there?
Yeah.
I haven't been to a Sonic, and I'm really looking forward to it one day. They have them in New Jersey. I don't know if there's one in New York City. But anyway, I digress.
Well, I always get a Diet Cherry Limeade, and it had been a tough morning. So Dave stops, and I'm holding this dead dog, and the girl comes out with the drinks, and she says, "Have a great day." I'm like,
Oh my God.
because I didn't want to say, this dog that I'm
Oh
holding
my
here
gosh.
is alive. So we take her home, and Dave had we picked out her spot like a while ago because she was on borrowed time for a while. David dug a hole, and I had planted pink Rose of Sharon because her name was Dimple Rose, so she had to have something very girly. And I had a old dog bed that I put in the bottom, and I wrapped her, like you'd wrap a baby. And I gave her, she always loved powdered sugar donuts to get her pills in. So I put in a bag of powdered sugar donuts and her lamb chop toy. And we're packing and moving. And when I was packing up, I found a scarf that Stacia had made. And nobody had wanted it. So I said, I'm going to save this and I'm going to put it on Dimple so she has something of her mom. And before she died, as we're driving to the vet, I was saying to her, you get to go see your mom. You're going to be okay. Your leg's not going to hurt you anymore. And she was just laying in my arms. And that's not Dimple. Dimple was a very independent woman. She was just like always head up and looking forward. But I think she knew, and so I wrapped her in this scarf, and what did we sing? I think we sang like Amazing Grace to her or something. I don't know. We did sing to her. We did sing to her, and out in our yard, it's like, God help us if anybody goes by, and we buried her. It was like 102 outside. And poor David was like filling in the hole, and then he decided it had to have rocks on it so nobody could steal her. And that day, her Rose of Sharon started blooming. It's been blooming ever since. This beautiful pink Rose of Sharon. And it's such a different kind of experience to have your dog die. We've all been through death of people, but for a lot of people, they're more attached to their animals than to some of their family members, that they really are their family. They really are their child. And that's who's really, important to them. And so you hear people talk about the devastation of the death of a pet. I had a friend whose cat died, and he said that, he nearly had a nervous breakdown as a result of his cat dying. And I read and I hear about these stories all the time. And so I wanted to raise that, the Healing Squad is, that opportunity to talk about a wide variety of things, a wide variety of frustrations or loss or grief. And, And I know you guys have been through deaths of pets, and I wanted to open that up to talk about, and also think about what rituals we have with our pets, and also the rituals, at the end of their lives. And
I think
also for
it's a
our
good
for
point.
our people who are listening in, please let Claire know if you want to join in and talk about your pet too. We'd love to hear
Yeah,
from you.
especially if you are someone who has lost pets, one pet, whatever the number is or type, but one thing is meeting people where it hurts, understanding and trying to understand the depth, because hearing what you said and how you explained the details, like you paint a very clear picture of how you loved this beautiful dog, who she was, and and when you knew it was the time. It's one thing when we vocalize, oh yeah, I've got to go and do this, today's the day, these are the things that we say, just kind of, if I say casually, this is the only way we can communicate it out loud, but on the inside you're falling apart, because there's something that happens. And people that don't have animals or have a different perspective of animals, that cannot see what animal lovers feel, it's important to try to understand, especially if you're someone watching right now and you're someone who's like, it's just a dog. Like, what's the big deal? You could stay in your way of thought, and that's your right. But this is a good chance to kind of get to see, where is it coming from? Why are we having such great relationships? And why does the loss hurt so much? We could talk about things like that too. I mean, I know I pulled up a few things I can share in a minute, but I think it'd be great to hear how people have coped with it, how long it may have taken for someone to get through it. Right now, it's so raw and real for you, Marianne, and my heart, like, I'm keeping myself in a certain emotional place so that I don't end up getting so upset. It is, I'm very upset for you also, and for her, in that scene that I see in my head of the garbage bag scene. Like, I'm still really, I'm so unhappy to hear that was the way that's done, and it makes me now want to talk to the vet that we have, because we have a new puppy. She's 4 months old at this point, but like, my brain's kind of going, I'm making a phone call and making sure I see what's there. Well, because you know what? Like, think about it. Like, we don't always know how things are handled. And again, they may not be wrong in their thought process. I don't agree with it at all. But maybe there's something in their thought that they're just like, it's the next dog. It's this. They just kind of, even in business, people look at people like they're numbers. They don't look at them with hearts that beat. So I'm really.
I was really, really surprised that he did that. And I don't know if he needs a, strongly worded letter.
Yeah, I think so, because I think that's incredibly traumatizing. And the three of us come from a background where we are more knowledgeable about death than the average Joe, and had unfortunate life experiences. And I had to put my cat down in December of 2021. And it was a totally different experience. Like, it was one of those things where they were extremely thoughtful. They gave me all the time that I needed when I was with my cat. Like, I got to play the music I wanted. I had his blanket. I had his pillow. It was almost this like idyllic transition, as much as I didn't want him to go, but I was so glad I could look him in the eye and hold him at the very end. And that meant so much to me. And
that's so important. And I can't even envision a situation where, and then he said, oh, well, he was euthanizing somebody, not somebody, a dog or a cat, I don't know what. And while he was putting the needle in, the woman like threw herself over the dog. And he said, she could have gotten, the needle instead of the animal. He said, I don't want you owning my veterinary business. It's like, I want your freaking veterinary business. I want to hold my dog while
Yeah,
she
and
dies.
that bothers me, that just tells him that he needs to work harder knowing how people are going to react because there's love there. And we want to understand the clinical aspect and the medical aspect of things, but they have to recognize what they're working with and who they're working with. People are, I lost my cat. I was always a dog person, but in my circumstances, I gave my dog to my parents and they moved away and I stayed home. And, eventually I had a couple friends of mine that felt so bad knowing the story because the way it happened is really sad and it's very tragic, but it was also very beautiful. I was trying to make sure my mom had something that was of mine, and the dog was mine. I wanted her to have it. So be it. And then they gave me a kitten because they had heard through the grapevine that there's a kitten that doesn't have a home, and then gave that kitten to me, not knowing that I was not a cat person. I just kind of claimed that one day, like, I'm not a cat person. And I was wrong, because then this beautiful little fluff nugget was on my lap, and it was around Christmas, and they had blindfolded me because they were excited to give me this gift since I didn't have a dog anymore with me, and I was all by myself here in Chicagoland. And I heard a bell, and I went open my eyes. They took the blindfold off. There's this little fluff of a kitten with a poinsettia, whatever, flower, and a little bell. So I ended up calling her Bella. Bella was with me for 20 years. So she has been with me. When we think about animals and relationships, you think about, it's not just the years, it's the experiences, the things that cat had seen, me taking her. I mean, I was a young dating girl, and I had been in an awful relationship. We had traveled, we had things we had gone through. She had seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And all the way till I had married my husband and I had my daughter, and she was 7 years old. It was her birthday. And we just came back from celebrating her birthday, and I saw the sign that it was over, meaning she was on my lap and she had let go, and she had urinated. And I didn't know, I wasn't prepared for this. And one thing led to another. We had the next, we took her to the hospital, and they gave me a room to be with her. And mind you, there's a lot of people out there, no one knows anyone's backstory. My backstory is I've never been to a funeral. I didn't even get to go to my own mom's funeral. Another story for another time. And I never really knew how to say goodbye. When I had my dog, when he passed away, my father had him euthanized, and I was in college here. He didn't tell me until it was over. So I didn't have those closures. A lot of them, I did not have closures. Probably one of the reasons why I have the things that I have, and I feel the effect of abandonment. I feel the effect of loneliness because I don't have those closures. That having Bella and her passing, me orchestrating this because I wanted her to have a good life all the way to the end, that was one of the most difficult experiences that I had, because I never had experienced what that is when you have to make that decision and having to say goodbye after 20 years of my life, and this is what happened. And I didn't know that you could bring, this is how ignorant I was about this, and I didn't have anyone to give me knowledge of, here's what you do. Like, you could actually ask for your pet back. I didn't know I could. I learned that today, that you can get your, and I don't know how everyone does what they do, because I'm not around anyone who like literally had this happen to them and then they told me what they did. Never had that. So they took my cat, and I thought it was over. I never even knew what to do after. I thought that was it. They gave me a picture of her paw, like the what do you call it?
The other little paw
Like a
print. Yeah,
Print,
I
yeah,
have one
paw
too.
Yeah.
print. That's what I had.
Yeah, and I
that
get a
was
garbage bag. You guys get pop. I get a garbage bag.
So I have Bailey, the cat that unfortunately I had to euthanize in December 2021. I have his ashes, and I have my husband's ashes, and I haven't gotten the strength to spread their ashes yet. So they are still both in my bedroom, and my husband's ashes are wrapped in his New York Rangers jersey, and the cat's ashes are right on top of him, because they would always snuggle together. So I have them like right next to each other in, like basically like they sleep with me every night. Like that's where I'm at. And also Matt's hockey stick is right next to my bed. So I have like this whole conglomerate of my family. But
Yeah.
what I'm planning to do is spread their ashes together. So I invite other people to do something like that. Is like I'm going to spread Matt's ashes in multiple places, and Bailey, my cat's ashes, are going to be spread partially with him and other significant places.
And I think that that's wonderful because you're finding you have to find the time and the mood for that to happen, that you can be able to let go. Letting go is tough. I had read something from psychologist Julie Axelrod, who shared in this conversation about like, why does it hurt so much? I'll share real quick what she said. If I squint, forgive me. It says, Julie Axelrod pointed out that the loss of a dog is so painful, or a pet, okay, it doesn't matter, I want to say just a dog, is so painful because you're not just losing a pet. It means also the possibility that it's a loss of a source of unconditional love, a primary companion who provides security and comfort, and sometimes even like the protege that has been mentored like a child. But what hit me was more of the source of unconditional love. It says a lot in that. Right?
I'm raising my hand because I've loved cats since I was 3 years old, and I'm an only child, and I grew up with a dysfunctional mother who I lived with. So my source of unconditional love was my cat. So I've had a cat ever since the beginning of time. And I mean, my beginning of my own consciousness. And I have Mikey here who's wandering around somewhere. Hopefully he makes a timely appearance in this video.
I think I see his paw over your right shoulder.
His food's down there.
No, that's a bowl. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I can just see her like slowly moving, and it's like, really? Because I see, and we have a whole paranormal activity experience on the show today, folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when you think of some people don't have it that as a source of unconditional love, but I think that there's untapped love when you get into these relationships. When you see, sometimes there's people that are like, I didn't want a cat, I didn't want a kitten. And what's happened to me is everyone has kind of recognized me over the past so many years that I've become the crazy cat lady because I now have 3. And I'm sure, I mean, I have to be very careful right now. I'm working on a puppy, bringing the dog world back into my life. But I love kittens and cats, and I love them. I love them so much, and they're nice. But you know, that's the thing. Like when you maybe you may be someone who has a very supportive, good life, and everything seems to be going fine. You never had an animal or whatever, and then suddenly now you've got this dog or you've got this cat, but something happens to you. And I think it's the fact that if you open up to allow the relationship start, because there's a relationship that will happen whether you like it or not if you have a pet in your life, and it taps into a kind of love that you don't get from human beings. Right. You know, it's something that that unconditionalness, it breaks us. It breaks us because we are around people in general. We all talk about unconditional love, and we act differently. When you see a dog or a cat, they love you anyway. They love you anyway. You have a bad day, they love you anyway. Sometimes they push you to love them back. You know, all the different things. So when you create these different memories, you know, I'd love someone to share any memory in a comment that showed you where this unconditional love or this untapped love was. What are some of the examples you can imagine? Because those are the things that are the building blocks of this great love that we end up having. And then just when we're like totally feeling so amazing, the news comes because the time has come to an end, whenever that is. Whenever that is. It could be your story where it's, you know, how old was Dimple?
15 and a half.
Okay. I not that long ago, I was following, I'm still following, I was following someone on Instagram, a gentleman named Charles, who has a Doberman, beautiful Doberman named Ruby Dooby Doo. That's the name of the, I'm sure people who know this know about Dobermans. I had brought myself into the world of getting what dog, what breed, you know, do I want to go with a mutt? Do I want to go with rescue? Like all these different things, and not to go into that. we made a decision that we were going to go and look for one of these other, German Shepherd, Belgian Malinois, Rottweiler, Doberman. My husband's a Marine. He obviously favors Doberman, but I wasn't just going to make the decision like that. I needed to do research. And I came along, I looked at a lot of things, but when I came to this site, this page, Ruby Dooby Doo, and I saw this Doberman, I watched all the videos that Charles had. Charles is like the greatest Dobie daddy I have ever seen in my life, because I'd never seen, we don't always get those things captured on camera. We just have it. And we hear stories, and that's it. But he captures all these moments of how he trained her, how he loved her, what they did together. And he did it in such a wonderful way that it was very inspiring for me, that had me actually make the decision of going for. And it was last week. I've been watching all these videos. I was looking to see what the next one was, and she passed away. And I know I'm not alone. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, I had not been that affected in watching social media things. Like, I wanted to see what someone's saying and whatever. But that one, I was on all the time for a certain purpose, but I also fell in love with their story. I felt like it was my dog. I bawled. I just sat in bed and I go, oh, no! She was, if I'm right, I want to say she was 8 years old. And I believe, man, you already know about the condition that Dobies can have with DCM. I can't say the whole word. It's too fancy wording, but that's the abbreviation of it. You can look it up. And she passed away, and she had it for 2 years. And the backstory is more, you can look into it, but the shock, and it's not even my dog. And I was wrecked all day, and I kept looking at the videos and crying and grieving. It was so real that what's so beautiful about a human being, the power that we have, is I think we're the only species that can see someone else's experience and feel like it's our own and actually cry about it. We shed tears for others, which you normally don't see that in that level with other species. So how to get through it is the next question. Is this your first loss, or have you lost other pets before? I'm sure you might say, yeah, I have.
No, I've had other pets die before. And the Doberman that we were taking care of died. When did he die? In the spring? Because he had that heart disease too. He was 10. But I think the other part of it that I'd like to talk about too is, we grieve. We're, humans, we grieve, but the pets also grieve for each other. And we have a couple of podcasts that we've done where, with like a pet communicator and about pets grieving. And, we never really acknowledge that pets grieve. But like the pet communicator talks about, talking to, being able to communicate with pets that are living and even pets that have died, and about how they communicate that they miss each other. And our dog, we have 2 more dogs. I had a chocolate or black lab when I met David, and he had Dimple Rose, an Australian Shepherd, and then we got a COVID dog who was a chocolate lab Australian Shepherd mix, because it's like yours, mine, and ours. We thought that was just poetic. And Luna Grace, who's our COVID dog, together and Dimple would they'd eat from each other's bowl, and they just had this whole relationship happening. And I was really concerned. I was saying to David, we got to be sure that we feed them together with the black lab, with Harley, because when Dimple dies, Luna's going to be really upset. And one of the things that I learned when I was researching about pet grief is that they really respond to how you're grieving. So if you're crying and wailing and, having those kinds of reactions, the pet will have a stronger grief reaction. And so what we did with the pets is that we said, Luna sat there and watched David bury Dimple Rose. And then she was like really kind of withdrawn, um, wasn't eating. And I would talk to her and I'd say, "Do you miss Dimple? I miss Dimple too." And I'd said, "Are you worried that we buried her? We're not going to bury you till you're dead." Because I didn't know if she understood why we were putting Dimple in the ground, you know? It was really kind of like, I felt I needed to say it to her.
Mhm.
And Harley, who is very much all about his food, wasn't eating either. And I thought, man, if that dog doesn't eat, he's really upset. And so we had to kind of, in dealing with our own grief, we also had to help the dogs with their grief. You know, reassure them, hug them more, talk about Dimple, and
That's incredible.
they're
That's
eating
incredible.
again. You know, they I think they're fine, but just, you know, for your own information, if you've got other pets, know that they're going to probably miss each other, and that you're going to have to process it with them like you would process it with a child. You know, like, here's what happened. You know.
What are some ways you can suggest, you know, maybe something that you've done or that, you know, you think is a good idea, or maybe you've heard that when you have an animal, a pet that passes that you love, and you're having a hard time getting over it, you know, like I don't want to say get over it, but you know, healing through grieving. What is some of the things that you can recommend that people can do to kind of help them process their feelings so that they can grieve and you know, I guess you could say they can grieve properly. That's, you know,
Well,
I don't think that's the right word.
I I think the process of grief is basically the same if you're talking about a pet, or grieving the loss of your health, or grieving a loss of a job, or grieving a death of, you know, a person. The process is really the same in terms of, um, you know, experiencing that grief, processing that grief, being able to say goodbye, and to then have like a new relationship with that. You know, like, yeah, if it's a dog, it's like, well, what about Dimple did we love? What about Dimple can we continue to do? Like, she liked to run with David, and even up to, you know, a couple days before, we have our driveway goes like straight up, and you know, she would always at least, you know, run to the top of the driveway, and then she really liked the grass across the street to poop on. Uh, so she was very particular about the kind of grass she liked to poop on. She liked perfectly manicured grass. It was very important to her. Um,
Mm.
but like a couple days before she died, she only got halfway up the hill, but the girl was still running. You know, even if it was only halfway, she still went because she liked to be a part of her pack. And so now when David runs up the hill with the other two dogs, they say, "Hi, Dimple. We're going for a run," and they say hello to Dimple on the way back down. It's you know, she's there. We talk about her, even, you know, she's dead, but she's still like, I'll sometimes walk around and out of the corner of my eye I see Dimple, and I'll go to, and it's like, no, it's, I don't know what I'm seeing, but it's not her, you know. Or will, um, you know, like I was doing a thing with her when she was with younger and with Stacia. She had a very good diet, you know, no extra stuff. But you know, when she was 13, I said, you know, we can let her have recreational eating, which, you know, we do with adults when they're dying. It's like, you want it, eat it. You know, we don't care. If you want it, eat it. And that's what we did with Dimple. So she got to lick plates, and she got, you know, we didn't finish a crust of bread or whatever. She got it. Man, she loved it. And powdered sugar donuts. And so I'm in the grocery store like the last time, and I go by where they have the powder, the little blue, little bag of powdered sugar donuts, and then like I just got tears in my eyes. It's like, oh God, I'm crying over donuts.
Yeah, right. It's something else because you have such a connection. Everything that triggers your emotions because you had a good thing with her. I mean, you see their character. The fact that you have multiple animals, multiple dogs, they all have their own personality, their own way, and you adapt yourself to it. You grow to kind of, it's their habit, it's their way, and it's so endearing after a little bit. In the beginning, it's like, oh my God, all right, fine, and then after a while, you just get really comfortable, and then when you don't have it anymore, gosh, it hits the pit of your stomach. Um, I was just imagining that if there's people that have lost a pet and they struggle, that one thing, I don't know if anyone's done something like this, and I'm saying this only because I obviously didn't do what you did in terms of burying our cat at the time. And I just think, like, how do you cope if that's not the thing that you did, or even if you did, like, what can you do? What else can you do? And one of the things I had seen is having a memorial. And I know that sometimes people want to separate it, like only humans do these things and you don't do it for anything else. But there's people that'll do this. And it doesn't have to be
Oh yeah.
grandiose, and it doesn't have to be, it can be whatever size you
Some
want to
people,
just
some people do it grandiose. I mean, they can be,
yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
big,
They'll go all
big
out,
kind of
like a
things.
bar mitzvah, but a negative thing. It's like it's such a thing. But you can still have a memorial. You can do it just within yourself if you need to, but you can have your friends over and family over, have the pictures out there, and talk about the wonderful memories. But you want to take it out of your heart and in your mind and put it into something. I think when it stays in your heart and mind and you just kind of keep it to yourself, a lot of us tend to do that. Like, I'll get over it, it'll be fine. It's, I gotta be strong. I gotta go back to work. I gotta do the. Well, you still have to find a way to do it. So if you can try to create a time where you can allow yourself to grieve and accept what has happened and allow that transition. I know we go on social media and you hear everybody like, oh, they're going to the Rainbow Bridge. And after a while, I don't know about you, but I'm going to keep it real. I'm a nice person, but I just want to say, like, sometimes I don't want to hear that shit. Like, I don't want to hear the Rainbow Bridge shit anymore. I'm done. Because when you have so much grief and so many memories and all these wonderful things, it's like, no, she's not on the Rainbow fucking Bridge right now. Right now, you can say something a little bit better to me. Like, that's where I go through my moments, and it's because of my own thing, but I know that that's all that people can typically say on the internet. So I'm going to ask you, Marianne, and I'm asking Marianne because I know that she works with grieving for things for so many different ways. What's a good way to show your care when you hear about it on the internet, when you hear about it in social media? You hear, oh my gosh, there's pictures and there's music and there's video, and it's really, really touching. And even if it isn't touching, like I lost my pet, what can we say to somebody instead of, again, I don't mean to sound disrespectful over the concept of using the Rainbow Bridge, okay? I apologize. But sometimes it gets so redundant because that's all we see that I'd love to be able to share.
Well, it's almost like everything happens for a reason. It almost becomes like that canned response of like, really? Really? Yeah, or they're in a better place. It's like, really?
After a while, it just doesn't work anymore. Maybe if that was something I heard randomly once in a blue, but I because I'm on internet and that's all we ever do. We're in pandemic and all that other stuff. That's all I've ever seen, And so I'm just thinking, what's a nice way to just simply be human to human, heart to heart? You've lost your pet. What would you want someone to say to you, or what would you want to see someone say?
We did a podcast just 2 weeks ago, Claire, on what do you say to someone who's grieving. So the people who are listening, I would tell you, go listen to that, because we have Gina's talks about when her mother died and the things that people said to her, and Claire talks about when Matt died and people said to her. But I think that one of the best takeaways from that was to say, tell me about them, or what was your mom's name? What was she like? What's your favorite memory of her? And it's sort of that whole, say their name, from that whole Fight Club, say their name and, acknowledge that they were important to the person, and that death was a profound death for the person who's grieving. And, it's not always, people don't always say, oh, well, tell me about Matt, tell me about this. And that's like when you're grieving, that's your favorite subject. Like, let me tell you all about Dimple, because that's where I am right now. And, it won't always be, but, she was just such a
Yeah, it's like, when did they get
incredible
adopted?
dog.
When did you adopt them? What color was their coat? Was their fur really soft? What was like the funniest thing that they ever did? Did they, like, because everybody I think everybody has like a funny story that their animal did or whatnot. So that's immediately where my head went, because I'm also thinking about, like, the human aspect too, that Marianne brings up a good point, is like, yeah, don't ask me about when my husband was sick. You're not, you're going to be just a face in the crowd. But to stick out, it's what was his favorite food? What's his favorite hobby? How'd you guys meet?
Mm-hmm. Because that's what we want to talk about. We want to be able to remember, and we want to be able to tell somebody about it. And if we can do that, then that helps us, like, let us remember with you. Don't just give us like, oh, maybe you should just get another dog, or get another whatever. It's like, well, no, I'm not there yet. But the thing with pets is that you can get another and fall as deeply in love with the other. You might say, oh, my other dog did this, or this was this way, but each of them has their own thing, their own specialness. How about the people that are listening? Would any of you like to join and talk to us about your pets?
I can let you in, and you can come on
Yeah.
camera, or you can comment below.
We'd love to hear your stories, and also even, in response to Anita's question, how would you answer that? What, when your pet has died, like what helped? I can remember back when my kids were young, I had a black lab named Lincoln, and I was working hospice at the time, and there was a vet that would give you the medicine that you could take your pet home and in your own environment, give them the medicine. And my girls were young. They were, I don't know, maybe kindergarten, first grade when he died. And all that afternoon, we looked at pictures of Lincoln, because he just adored the kids. He'd lay at the bottom of the couch, and they'd slide off the couch onto him and then onto the floor. And he was like, yeah, I'm here. You can do that. And he'd like disappear in the neighborhood and go have tea parties with the little kids down the street. He was just like, everybody knew him. And, so we had this whole ritual of saying goodbye to Lincoln. And they went to bed, and then their dad and I, gave Lincoln this lethal dose of medicine and sat with him until he died. And but one of the nice things that a neighborhood boy did was he came, and Lincoln was 110-pound black lab, and he came and he said, I'll dig his grave for you. And he dug it nice and deep, and we had a ceremony, a funeral. And my girl, we've always had funerals. And then we moved to Oklahoma City. In our backyard, we had the pet cemetery from the different animals that would die. And so when we're packing up and leaving there, now at this point, the girls are like 23 and 24. they go to the pet cemetery and they want to take like the bodies. And I said, I really don't think that's a good idea. And so they like
I think you can
rummaged.
understand that if you don't want to leave them behind, right? So that's tough. Wow.
And and they're, you would think, that age that shouldn't be so hard. And we had this one little dog that they'd always say looked like a squirrel. So her funeral marker was this squirrel statue that I bought. And so Rose says, I'm going to take the squirrel statue, and she picks it up, and it is full of 1 billion ants. I said, you're not taking that. And then she's like walking toward the pool. I said, and you are not rinsing that off in the pool. But it was fun. It's like, so what they wanted to do was to go to the pet cemetery and have like a final ceremony before we moved out. And that was both touched and surprised by that at that age that they felt that it was important to kind of put a closure on the pet cemetery.
My daughter did that with our tree that went down. She's like, let's just look at this and have a moment. Let's just share a moment with the tree. And I loved that she did that. She was serious. I laughed at first thinking she was trying to be funny. And she's like, no, let's just stand here. And I saw her face. I was like, phew. Yep, let's just stand here. Because, it is sad when you lose a tree. But she takes everything very seriously when it comes to an end. And I admired that. But getting to what you said, though, I hope people can at least take something out of this conversation where if you are someone that eventually will lose a pet, or you're someone who has, that maybe having a moment, taking that moment to acknowledge their life and looking for the ways to be grateful for it. And even when you have to move away, like what your children did, that they gave them a moment that was saying, you're loved, you're so special to us, and we're so grateful for you. I think that really helps us as part of the process of healing. So
right. And to acknowledge that any death has meaning, or any loss has meaning, or any transition has meaning, and to deny yourself that opportunity to say, let me pause. Let me, even, I had a doctor once who was writing something and the pen stopped working, and she stopped and she said, thank you, pen, for the service, and then threw it away.
That's great.
And I thought, oh Lord.
That's really funny. I'm gonna remember that, because think about our reactions. I'm not going to tell you.
Thank you, Instagram, for the service. We are getting the 2-minute warning. So, Marianne, thank you so much for sharing tonight about the loss of a pet. And Anita, thank you so much for your wisdom every time you come in, and you always share these wonderful little pearls of, genius.
Absolutely. And remember, every day is a gift, and be thankful for the people and pets that are in our lives. And when they're no longer living in our lives, they're always living in our hearts.
Yeah, I love that.
And we'll be here next week, the Healing Squad, taking on emotional frustration one day at a time.
Or one drink at a time. Or whatever. Whatever works.
Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do.
That's right. That's right, sister. All right. See you guys in a week.
See you next week. Bye.